This isn't a cost bound. It's just how I dress on Tuesday night. The best part of doing the Kingpin voice is making him say stuff that's ridiculous. For you see, Matt, rubber baby buggy bumpers. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Yes. My brother asked me earlier today, why do you keep doing this to yourself? And the answer is, I don't know. The funny thing is, the show isn't even like intrinsically terrible. It's not good, but it's not like terrible. I've seen way worse than this. But it's really, really boring. Like, really boring. It's basically failing in the ratings. It's not trending on anything, as I brought up before. And frankly, I think the show deserves it. I would rather this just be dead and buried than people artificially propping up what's just basically not a good show. And I can make that determination now that it's episode 8. And knowing that we still don't really have much of a plot going into episode 9, it's really sad because this was the team trying. And if this is you trying ain't good enough. I'll quote another Disney-owned property. Do or do not. There is no try. And what we get out of this is a very severe do not. So, let's talk about why this episode was so boring. Normally I don't bring up the last time ons, but this time around they kept it to be very Kingpin focused and tried to make it seem like the Kingpin was an actual threat throughout the entire series. He has been anything but a threat. In fact, most of the time he comes off massively ineffective and useless. So, cool that you can kind of use the power of editing to make him seem like a tough guy, but eh. Then we cut to Bullseye being brought from isolation into general population. And since he's a former law enforcement officer, that could basically mean his death. And this becomes essentially our core focus for the episode outside of one other thing. But before we get to those focus things, let's go into another one of those split segments. We end up watching Vanessa and the Kingpin walking through the docks, and then confronting Adam, which ends with Adam's death. Finally, this is interspersed with Matt and Heather arguing about superheroes and Heather's trauma. Then, Kingpin's assistant guy basically gives Heather an invite to the fancy ball, which will be our second focal point of this episode. Matt is clearly upset about this because he's like, hey, Kingpin is kind of evil. And then she's like, nah, not really. I think you're just being paranoid. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure he's evil. Yay, CW-esque drama. We then cut to Matt at the law offices. He has a little bit of an argument with McDuffie and learns that Bullseye has been moved into general population, which kind of starts to get Matt focusing again on the loss of Foggy and the events of the first episode. We then cut to the Kingpin doing his mayor thing, talking about how he doesn't want to deal with any of the PR stuff right now because the task force that he's created, which we've barely seen on screen, has very good public approval. And basically, the Kingpin's doing great in the polls, so why waste your time with hugging puppies and kissing babies when you can just ride on the success of your team of police thugs? He also promotes Daniel. Yeah, that super annoying guy. Now he's the deputy mayor of communications. Coolsies. Then we get a big section following Matt around. Matt ends up getting in a argument with McDuffie and his client because he realizes his client is guilty and doesn't want to deal with it. McDuffie be a whole like, hey, Matt, you've been kind of weird lately and it's really starting to freak me out and you need to calm down or figure your stuff out. Matt then goes to the bar from episode 1, has a drink with Cherry and the bar owner, and kind of tries to figure out a little bit more about what he's feeling and dealing with, which is fine. He then goes to the prison to actually confront Bullseye. In the process, Bullseye admits that, yeah, I could tell you stuff, but my life's on the line right now, so you help me, I'll help you. And as a result, Matt basically just bashes Bullseye's head into the table a few times, causing him to bleed and what have you, and then leaves. This has a payoff. But before that payoff, we have the big black and white ball, where we kind of skip around in a nice shot, because it's the cuts in it are there, but there's a lot of panning around, trying to, oh, look, who's here? Who's there? I appreciate that. I think there's some good camera work done in this section. We see Fisk and Vanessa doing some stuff. We see Heather doing some stuff. We see Daniel and BB doing some stuff. Skims around through all those characters. Then we cut back to the prison, where Bullseye is in the medical bay. He gets sewn up. And then, because he can actually grab stuff, he just starts killing everybody, steals a police uniform, and then escapes from the prison. So now he's on the loose. But we go back to the ball because this becomes the biggest chunk of our episode. We have a moment where Mayor Fisk ends up threatening a guy that he believes to be the swordsman, and seems to be the case. We did see the swordsman in a previous little video clip, so it's kind of cool how that ties together. We then see Daniel try to act tough and flex in front of BB, and she seems to be massively indifferent and maybe a little bit worried about his changing behavior. We then see the task force rough up a guy, because that we need to see a little bit more of that. We needed that task force to kind of be a bigger part of the story, since they're probably the final boss fight of this series, unless we're planning to just roll that over into season 2. And yes, they have planned to do a season 2. Man, the ratings on that are going to be bad. After that, we see BB go and talk to the commissioner, saying, hey, you and your Gestapo thugs. And he's like, hey, they belong to the mayor. And I could give you the documents that tell you about all the crimes they've committed if you had a way of getting that out to the public. And she's like, well, I do publish under more than one name. So you have a nice little BB moment there, which, yay, a payoff for BB. I am surprised. And yes, there's no BB Chanaru, which means I can't use the graphic, which kind of hurts. Down here. I want to use the graphic. Nobody knows what it's from, but it makes me happy. It appears at first that Matt isn't going to show up to the ball, but he does show up. He spends a little time with Heather, but really he's using that to spy on Kingpin and Vanessa. And Heather notices, and Heather gets really annoyed at Matt's behavior. Understandably so. He's coming off like a complete weirdo, and she is obviously concerned, especially being a therapist. This leads Matt to trying to confront the Kingpin, and it leads into our dance number, where Vanessa and Wilson are doing a nice little dance together, and then Matt takes Heather and he dances. He puts together that Vanessa was the person who ordered the hit on Foggy. And at that point, he breaks into the mayor's dance and takes Vanessa and tells her, hey, I know it's you. And she basically is not really bothered by it, and like, you should just relax. There's nothing you can do about it. And by the way, does your girlfriend know you're Daredevil? Because I don't think she does. So you got a nice little threatening thing there. It's nice to see Vanessa actually show some fangs. I like this version of her more so than the I'm so genius crime boss lady version of her, which just felt very out of character. While this more manipulative, intellectual criminal, I think works a lot better for her. We then also intersperse with Bullseye getting there, getting his rifle, aiming it up, and then bam, gunshot. And that ends our episode with Matt being hit by the bullets because he tried to protect the Fisk family. He's not going to die, I hate these kind of like, oh, did our main character just get killed? And I'm like, no, unless there's some random plan to put Elektra into place like they did in the comics for a temporary amount of time. I don't know. I would assume he will be fine in the next episode. Kind of a stupid move. I assumed they were going to go and kill Heather because she does die in the comics. But sure, our main character's dead. It's the end of the series. So that's good to know. There's no more episodes. I don't have to do this next week. Kingpin wins. Game over. As interesting as I made everything sound, it was actually really kind of boring and kind of a slog to watch. A lot of the conversations just feel very slow. There's a lot of just panning around the dance, using the dance to kind of buy time for the episode length. And while I do like Matt kind of imploding throughout most of this episode, it just kind of feels like this would be a really good episode 2 or 3, where we're building some drama up for later episodes, and not as the penultimate episode, where, hey, look, stuff's happening finally, and it's just like, cool. It's rather unfortunate because the stuff that's being set up here could have been really interesting if it came several episodes ago. Coming at the end just feels a little flat, in my opinion. Let's move on to the characters, who actually fare pretty well this time around. When it comes to our characters, they actually come off pretty well in this episode. We get character stuff for them to do. It's kind of nice. Beginning with Matt Murdock, we have him very much imploding, like I said in the story section, with him having arguments with Heather, him having arguments with McDuffie, him obsessing over the Foggy case, his issues with Bullseye, and he's just destroying his personal life and acting like a crazy person, which is completely on brand for the character. Not only has he done that in the Netflix series, he does that all the time in the comics as well. It's a very accurate portrayal of the Daredevil character, and I'm glad to see that. It allows Cox to do some more acting, and even little character moments where the bartender goes, wait, he didn't use his cane. And I do enjoy those, hey, there's something weird about Matt type moments with characters. Yeah, it was nice to see this. It's nice to see him being so focused on Fisk that it's destroying his entire life and making people question his sanity. Bravo for how well Daredevil's handled. Then we have Wilson Fisk. He also comes off pretty good. This sequence where he threatens Adam, the sequence where he threatens the swordsman, where he has his little communications of his various subordinates and how domineering and controlling he is. Even his balanced relationship with Vanessa is all fairly well done. This is the version of the character we could have used 7 episodes ago. The problem is it has a little bit of that too little too late. We've seen him made a joke so many times and seem so weak and so pathetic that seeing him now act like how he's supposed to act feels a little off for the series. And while it is welcomed, why couldn't you do this from episode 1? Then there's Bullseye. Poindexter doesn't get a lot of sequences here, but what he gets is pretty intense. He has a lot of that intimidation. He has that look, that stare he does. The music cues that come along with him really work. Seeing him do the Bullseye thing where he just throwing things and killing people, always cool. Even though the ending was very predictable, it was still nice to see him do his thing, and I appreciate that. As for our minor characters, I actually have things to say this time around. Daniel is interesting because now he's like, I'm big man in town. I'm the deputy of communications. And while I do appreciate this attempt at character growth, it comes off really weird because he still acts like some Zoomer douchebag, and it doesn't quite work when he's trying to be Mr. Tough Guy. Then we have Heather. Heather gets to do a little of her psychologist stuff, being very concerned about Matt and his behavior. She kind of has a little bit of a sequence about the trauma she's dealing with, but it's not really well done, unfortunately. The actress is trying her best with what she's been given. And her drama with Matt, though it does feel like something out of a CW show, works to help facilitate the story and character growth / character implosion for Matt. So I do appreciate that. Then we have BB. Yeah, she actually made it to the character section. What really helped this was that she had the conversation with the commissioner about the task force, her issues with the task force. And so because of that, we're seeing that she's kind of playing Daniel, and she's kind of using these connections to be able to get more information to both further her career as a journalist, but also probably to have some form of gotcha moment that she's trying to get for Kingpin because she knows he was involved in the death of her uncle. It's nice to see her have any kind of personality. Overall, I'm surprised the characters came out as well as they did this time around. Now, I want to point out that this is not great characterization comparatively to the Netflix show, but comparatively to what we've had thus far, it's actually pretty good. The fact that I can actually say things about the characters is a step above several other episodes. But the problem is, we've seen these characters in 7 previous episodes where they acted like mostly different people, or more often than not, had no personality whatsoever. So while I do appreciate this, it doesn't make up for the sins of the past. All right, let's get into the aesthetics because there's some interesting things in this episode. This time around, the aesthetics are a mixed bag, but mostly kind of interesting. Now, when it comes to the audio, the first thing I want to talk about is that end song, that I See the Lightning Flash song. That song is hyper annoying, and I don't know why they chose it. There's plenty of other songs that would possibly play into the I'm a sniper about to take a shot, but let's do an annoying song that's good too. That being said, the party obviously has the diegetic music, and we get a few other little songs throughout the episodes, so this is a more music-heavy episode than previous episodes, which I think works for it. It gives it a little more flavor because the background music is generally banal, as I've said in previous videos. I do like the use of sound with Matt because he does a lot of the focus hearing, and you get some interesting stuff like a sequence where he is listening to the Kingpin, who then goes into another room, and as he goes to the other room, the listening sound ends and you get the conversation in the room. And then when they cut back to Matt, the listening sound continues as they leave the room and continue the conversation. I thought that was a clever use of the sound effects. In addition to that, you have a lot of Matt searching for a very specific sound, especially at the party. You get moments in the party where things are just slowing down and you're hearing the music slow down as well. So a lot of good use of sound in this episode. The visuals, on the other hand, are kind of nothing special. Unless you really like watching people slow dance, then, you know. But we do get the really cool Bullseye chucking the things at people sequence, but it's really short. That's about it. There's no fights, there's no cool real camera work other than that little part at the beginning of the party where they're moving the camera around everywhere. I mean, that's fine, but you know, the bare minimum's just the bare minimum, which is what they've generally achieved in this episode. In fact, by Netflix standards, it's not even the bare minimum. For the sake of this show, it is. I do find it strange that the audio got a lot of focus while the visuals were kind of meh, but at least the camera work was better than the earlier episodes that were not done by this team. Still, man, the camera work in the original is so much better. Alright, let's wrap it up, but I think you can guess what my score is going to be. Overall, I was mostly bored this episode. Everything feels so dry, and I guess part of me has just hit the apathy stage because of 7 episodes of not good. And while, yes, this episode was significantly better than some of the previous episodes, it was still heavily flawed. And while I do like a few things that are in it, it's not enough to recommend. But it is better than some of the things we've previously gotten. That being said, the score is not going to look particularly good, just because of all the general flaws. Trying to change how the characters behave or how things are shot this late in the game can't make up for the sins of the past, which is why my final verdict is a 2.5 out of 5. While I do think there was some great audio and a few good character moments, the story itself is rather boring and predictable, the visual side of things is nothing special, and frankly, it's just not enjoyable to watch the show. Primarily just because the previous episodes have tainted it. And if I compared this to the Netflix series, it's a joke of an episode, where maybe it'd be a fine episode 1 or 2, but using this as your second to last episode really comes off weak and ineffectual. You know, like the Kingpin did for 7 straight episodes. And that's excluding Echo and Hawkeye, where I was also a joke. Can we just admit I look good like this? Seriously, I would get a bald cap and just go to cons as the Kingpin if I didn't already go to cons as Matt Murdock. I mean, I guess I could technically do both, but I'd really be worried about my white suit getting dirty. I'd have to wear this to like a Halloween party or something. I'll figure out a time. I'm going to wear this at some point, people. This is too nice and too good for me to just keep in the closet. And yes, I had all this in my closet. I am the Dapper Bard, after all. That has nothing to do with this episode. What does have to do with this episode is I'm glad it's almost over. I can't imagine the next episode's going to make up for most of this. But in terms of the whole series, this wasn't bad. I know it doesn't have as high of a score as the first 2 episodes, but I was very lenient on the first 2 episodes, primarily because I assumed we were building into something. I assumed wrong. That's what it is. When part of my score is based on enjoyment, and my enjoyment was I kind of want to take a nap, you know, It's going to hurt the overall score. But maybe it didn't hurt your overall score. If you like this episode, please let me know. If you were as bored as I am, please let me know. If you have a bald cap and you want to just lend it to me for a con, let me know. And if you want to cosplay as Bullseye, Wesley, or Vanessa, or Elektra, or insert other villains from Spider-Man, the Punisher, or Daredevil, let me know. We can make it a con. Cause a little havoc. Have a little fun. And until next time, I'll see you at the tavern.